So here's some actual grown-up facts about the causes of high housing prices in Australia. A little boring, but we can manage it. We've got brains. The people who watch this show have brains. You don't need to be spoken to like Friendly Geordie speaks to his audience. According to research by both the Reserve Bank and the Australian Institute for Progress, around 70% of the rise in house prices is due to the decrease in interest rates we've had in recent years. That's increased demand versus the available supply. So prices go up. The Howard government tax policy changes no doubt affected house prices a bit, but empirical evidence suggests that the impact on property prices of both negative gearing and the capital gains tax concession was only around 2%, according to the Grattan Institute, and around 4 to 5% at the most, according to other economists that we spoke to. If lower capital gains tax and negative gearing were the factors that were driving up prices, then Australia would have had a housing affordability problem in the 1960s and 70s. But it didn't. Jean Tunney from Adept Economics says the biggest reason for the increase since 2000 is the imposition of character housing rules across large parts of our capital cities and less greenfield land available for development, partly because infrastructure charges increased really sharply. All the red and green tape also matters a lot. The Housing Institute of Australia commissioned research which showed that taxes in Sydney can add a whopping $576,000 to the price of an average home. House prices have risen at an alarming rate for the past 25 years because demand has increased faster than supply as governments increasingly make new home building expensive through taxes, fees and charges, they say. Politicians continue to blame foreigners, investors, and then foreign investors for the housing shortage rather than to make policy changes to reduce tax and increase supply. Only half the cost of a new house and land package is the cost of the house and land. Let that sink in. The other half are costs imposed by governments. Another factor you won't hear Labor and the left mention is the energy transition and the splurging on infrastructure occurring at a national and state level. That is chewing up more resources than the economy actually has. It means construction costs for everything go up, including private housing. There's also the issue of gold plating of construction standards, having standards that are, just crazy. It's one thing to have good standards and to have safety. We need that, right? But things are getting ridiculous. The new National Building Code alone is estimated to add something like $50,000 to the price of a two-story house, some of which is to pay to make all the houses wheelchair accessible, which sounds lovely, but fewer than 1% of the population actually uses wheelchairs, and so why should 100% of the population, especially new young home buyers, have to pay that $50,000? Now, normally the interest rate increase that we've had would have taken the top off asset prices and brought housing prices down or just stabilised a bit. But when you've got the population of 2 Tasmanias arriving in the last 2 years, fueling demand, that's not going to happen. By the way, negative gearing, it was removed in the 1980s by Paul Keating, and with the exception of Sydney, it had negligible impact on pricing. So guess who brought it back? Bob Hawke. Punishing investors and developers is not going to help the supply problem. Who knew? Everybody. Anyway, while we're talking economics, the Reserve Bank, as you're probably well aware by now, held rates steady this week. There won't be another rates meeting until after the election, so that's it for now. But the fact that we just had one cut and then no more makes it pretty clear that a series of rate cuts probably isn't happening really as fast as economists were saying and hoping it might. And although the Reserve Bank governor was being very politically careful not to show any bias in the news conference, it's clear the bank doesn't think inflation is truly under control and that government spending is still off the charts. The budget and the budget reply, I'm afraid, just demonstrated an unwillingness by our political class to cut the out-of-control government spending, with deficits baked in until the mid-2030s. And maybe worse still, nobody's got a strong debt reduction strategy either. as our borrowings at federal and state level creep above $1.5 trillion. Here's how the ABC reported the rate announcement on Tuesday.
After the Reserve Bank left the cash rate on hold as expected at 4.1%.
We have made good progress on bringing inflation down and keeping unemployment low. This is a good position for the economy to be in as we approach a period of uncertainty. But we have to be careful not to get ahead of ourselves. Inflation pressures remain and cost of living pressures are still very real for many Australians.
So forget the US tariff problem. They're not going to directly hit Australia too hard, nor will they change the Reserve Bank's view on rates, frankly. The chance of a cut in May after the election has fallen a bit, but it's still around 70% of analysts who think that another cut will come then. I sit a little bit in the other 30%. You see, Australia has a productivity problem, and most experts say that there's not much chance that things are going to improve anytime soon. Australia's multi-factor productivity number, that's the statistic that economists like to use as the main measure of productivity. It includes the impact of both labour and capital investment on productivity. That's risen by only 0.1% in the past 2 years. That's the dark blue line there on the chart. That's well below the 20-year average. In fact, labour productivity alone, the light blue line there, hasn't improved at all in more than 5 years. On top of all that, business investment is expected to be very weak until late 2025, which could further hinder productivity. If it's going to improve, there's going to be a need for government to have some vision and focus on supporting innovation and business. Also, we'll need to improve the skills of the workforce through better education and training. But there's also an attitude problem around work in this country that we need to talk about. Just try actually starting a small business and employing someone, and you'll get the picture very fast. Productivity is a key determinant of economic growth and living standards. And we cannot have wages growth unless we have productivity growth. Because if we put wages up without getting productivity up too, then we just increase the cost of everything that's already being produced, and that equals inflation. And without inflation under control, that means higher interest rates, etc., round and round we go. And you know where the biggest drain on productivity sits in this country? It sits with Labor's two favourite groups, unions and bureaucrats. I'm not talking about the public servants at the front lines, not the nurses, the police and the teachers who are actually teaching. The bureaucrats, the people who make the rules in public service offices that make the people on the front line even less productive. The people whose own job productivity is next to zero and who drive down the productivity of the people on the front lines with their stupid rules and regulations that make doing the job as a nurse or teacher or police officer harder. We need to gut the public service officers. Now, Peter Dutton said in his budget reply speech that he will do a little culling.
We'll reverse Labor's increase of 41,000 Canberra public servants because it will save about $7 billion a year. That's money that we can provide back to the Australian people in frontline services. And the growth rate of public servants under this government in Canberra is about 3 times the rate it was under the Rudd-Gillard government.
Australia has 2.5 million people on the public payroll. That's almost 1 in 10 of us and 1 in 6 of us who actually make up the workforce of 15 million. That's a lot. Dutton's cuts would be a drop in the ocean. But even his modest plan not to increase the size of the bloated bureaucracy is causing the Labor lovies to go into full meltdown. See, I think the big problem is our national psyche right now. Telling Australians they've got to tighten their belts or be more productive or justify their paycheck, as real leaders used to do in the days of Fraser and Hawke, is no longer acceptable among politicians who are desperately in need of love to win office. It's also unacceptable to media outlets who desperately need to win audiences. So nobody is going to tell the public that they have to be more productive or work harder and smarter, or that inefficient, wasteful jobs have to be cut, or wages can't go up until we get more productivity. It's a complete no-no in this day and age to speak any of those things, but they're true. And we won't see inflation under control or interest rates coming down significantly until we face the facts. Our government spending is out of control. We're too dependent on government services and handouts, and until that's fixed, interest rates are not coming down. So we better start rewarding the politicians and the media commentators who have the guts to deliver us the bad news, and stop rewarding the ones who keep pretending everything is fine so they can hang on to their audiences and voters. Are we mature enough as a nation and a people to handle that? That's the real question. I want to tell you about a fantastic initiative that's happening out of Canberra right now. It's called the Awards for Men in Leadership. The awards are given out on International Men's Day, which is November 19. They're designed to combat the increasing denigration of masculinity in our culture and the widespread discrimination against males inside and outside the workplace. The goal is to lift the well-being of boys and men and facilitate healthy collaboration between men and women. The awards for men in leadership are designed to inspire men to make a bigger contribution to family and community and to elevate positive male role models. There's a $10,000 scholarship for studies and professional development, public recognition for the winners, and a year of mentorship and executive coaching for each recipient. It's targeted at young men and middle-aged guys who fought their way up from some other kind of disadvantage. This is the third year of the awards, and it'll be the biggest yet. To find out more, just search up the Awards for Men in Leadership on Facebook. That was a segment from a recent episode of our fortnightly news commentary show, The Other Side, with me, Damien Curry. If you liked it, support us. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube right now so you don't miss a thing. It's totally free. Just click that subscribe button and the little bell. And check out our Other Side Unplugged show too, and join our mission to actually do something and change Aussie media for the better at othersidetv.com.au. That's othersidetv.com.au. Check it out now.